Hey there, how there, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to another Cutter Top 10 MLB video, of course, sponsored by the Toronto Blue Jays. Hopefully, we're doing quite well. We are doing the top 10 broadcasters, excuse me, as I burp in MLB history. These broadcasters are legendary and all that, and you know, only one of these guys are actually active past in the 2010s onwards. So that's how good history is. I wish I could do like a top 20 or all that, but I know Hum Baby Baseball on YouTube did his top 15 and added some honorable mentions too. So practically, I can't be like him. So, you know, and no, there's no Canadian bias. I mean, if there was bias, Tom Cheek would be on this list. Roger Brulette would be on this list. Who's the guy? Dave Van Horn would be on this list. You know, yeah, I just can't be biased. All right, here we go. Number 10 is the man from Philadelphia. Keep driving down the here. 3-run homer, Michael Jack Schmidt. So that's him, Harry Kalas. He was known for giving Philadelphia baseball its memorable sounds from 1970 to from 2008. Unfortunately for Harry Kalas, he actually died the day before an assignment. So he died while on the road assignment with the Philadelphia baseball thing. It wasn't like he died at home. He just died for an assignment and all that. Of course, his deep resonant one, this ball's out of here. It's gone. You could hear his great calls in 1971 calling Rick Wise's no-hitter on the same day as he had 2 home runs. The home run for Michael Jack Schmidt with his 500th home run, that's famous. Harry Kalas was the voice of the Phillies in the 93 World Series against the Blue Jays, giving some gravitas. And of course, 2008, when the Phillies won the World Series. And then sadly, he died less than a year later. It's part of Philly's identity. His calm authority and enduring presence made him treasured by fans across decades. And it wasn't just baseball. I mean, yeah, he did his Nationals games too. It was football, Everyone remembers him for doing his NFL films narrations and all that. So that's where you're here. Number 9 is the man from the Giants who says, Adios, Pelota! And is also was an icon for ESPN Sunday Night Baseball when he was on Sunday Night Baseball, and that was John Miller of the San Francisco Giants. I know you could also say Dwayne Kuiper and also Mike Krukal doing the calls, but not the best. But yeah, John Miller had a great play-by-play thing. He's got wit, command of language, and easy storytelling. The best modern play-by-play announcer around. He's done it for Sunday Night Baseball for ESPN. He's done it with the Orioles, and I can't remember the team before. He did one. He did a team before the Orioles. Can't remember, but he did. He's now with the Giants as the radio/TV guy. I think they do a rotation with Kuiper and Krukal. I think it's Miller and Fleming. Dave Fleming does play-by-play on the radio. But anyway, it's pretty impressive. John Miller doing his job with Joe Morgan, and they were recognizable on Sunday Night Baseball, and you knew it was going to be a big one. Number 8 is Kurt Gowdy. Kurt Gowdy, known for his stuff, not just for baseball, but for football and a lot of things. He was the NBC broadcaster for the NFL as well as MLB. He was a great national voice. He worked on NBC's Game of the Week for many years, until 1975 when he controversially was dumped off. He did the World Series broadcasts. He was one of the main guys and all that, bringing a steady, confident presence to big games and defined how televised baseball sounded during a formative national TV era. Kirk Gowdy called a lot of World Series, called a lot of All-Star Game stuff. Yeah, he was NBC's main play-by-play guy. And then after the 1975 World Series, he was dumped off for Joe Garagiola on play-by-play, and a lot of people were shocked. Gowdy had some contract problems, but it could also have been some pressure by Major League Baseball because Kurt Gowdy made some comments about the seemingly interference call in Game 3 of the 1975 World Series. And unfortunately, though, the Ed Armbrister incident, and unfortunately the Red Sox lost, and then he got mad and allegedly Bowie Kuhn and his baseball brain trust basically tried to or even Ford, the sponsors, tried to pull Kurt Gowdy off, and a lot of people were pissed off. He went to CBS, so that was weird. Anyway, number 7 is the man who famously says, "I must be in the front row. Get up, get up, get out of here, gone." And that man from Milwaukee is Bob Uecker. He was one of the best self-deprecating humorists in baseball history, and his baseball intelligence made it his own. Bob Uecker was a baseball player, unlike the last 3 guys. He actually played the game in the major leagues. He was kind of a backup catcher and all that, but he did win the 1964 World Series ring with the Cardinals. He was the backup catcher to Tim McCarver, but he did it. Bob Uecker had a comic persona and made him famous in Milwaukee. His work calling Brewers games as the play-by-play guy was rooted in timing, knowledge, and a genuine affection. 3,000 hits for Robin. He was pretty good. He was behind the mic. Yes, he was behind the mic in Major League 1 and 2, just a bit outside. It actually came into the popular baseball lexicon, that call. So Bob Uecker did a great job on that. He was on Mr. Belvedere, which was actually amazing. He even, he did some stuff. But what's even crazy about Bob Uecker is the guy was part of Milwaukee's radio broadcast for 5 decades. I kid you not. Milwaukee came into the league in 1970 from Seattle. And he didn't do that year. But in 1971, he did that year. So Bob Uecker was around for 5 decades of Milwaukee Brewers baseball. Last year was the first time in 5+ decades that there was no Bob Uecker behind the mic at all during the thing. And it was just like, dead silence in the Midwest. And I can understand why. Number 6 is Harry Carey. His booming, "Holy cow!" And of course the 7th-inning stretch, "Take me out to the ball game." He was less polished, but he was entertaining and inseparable from the ballpark. Harry Carey may be well known for being the Cubs broadcaster from 1982 on to 1997, and then of course he died in the offseason, 98 offseason. And strange enough, the Cubs won the trip to the playoffs. And he also was doing White Sox games at Comiskey for the 1970s. And he was a legend for the Cardinals for 25 years. People forget about that. But yeah, Harry Carey was pretty good at all that. It was fan first baseball joy. Of course, Harry Carey would make many memorable pops, including calling Ryan Sandberg almost the wrong name every time, like Rhino Sandberg or whatever. But Harry Carey was amazing and all that. It was legendary. And it gives you chills when they did the 7th-inning stretch at Wrigley Field the first time without Harry Carey was his wife. I can't remember his wife's name, but yeah. His wife did the 7th-inning stretch, and then the black balloons and all that were floating out of Wrigley Field. Chip Carey took Harry's job with the Cubs and made it his own. So yeah, Harry Carey was just pretty good. Number 5 is Jack Buck, another St. Louis Cardinal icon. Jack Buck had the Midwestern directness with a flair for the dramatic. He would make many calls for the Cardinals, and that's a winner! A World Series winner for the Cardinals many times. And on national broadcast, he actually carried weight because he knew when to rise with the moment. Jack Buck not only did Cardinals games, he did games for NBC. He was actually he was the St. Louis. Yeah, he was doing games for CBS Radio. The same time as Vin Scully's call in 1988 about Kirk Gibson's home run, Jack Buck did the famous one saying, "I don't believe what I just saw. I don't believe what I just saw." And let's not forget about Ozzie Smith's home run, Game 5 of the 1985 NLCS. So if Cork's one in the right, down the line. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. It's a home run. And the Cardinals won the game 5-4 on a homer by the Wizard. Go crazy. Yeah, Jack Buck knew how to to the flair for the dramatic. He was actually CBS's guy for the 90 and 91 World Series, but a lot of people actually didn't like his calls and all that. I think the city of Pittsburgh really hated on Jack Buck, and they got rid of him and made Sean McDonough the play-by-play guy in 92, 93. Of course, the man with the famous voice cracks. Anyway, but yeah, he was known for the dramatic. He did a lot of NFL games too, so he was an NFL icon too. And yeah, his death in 2002 was just tragic because when he died on the Tuesday, and then 4 days later, Daryl Kyle died in his hotel room, and it was a sad week for the Cardinals. But of course, Jack Buck is legendary and all that, and did that famous 2001 poem about 9/11. Joe Buck did not make this list. Neither did the great Hawk Harrelson. I consider them good because, like, no, well, Joe Buck, 24 World Series on play-by-play. Nobody has touched that mark. Not even the old timers. And of course, well, Hawk Harrelson is basically the man. You can put it on the board, yes. But I like him. I like that call. Just the same. All right, number 4 is Ernie Harwell. Ernie Harwell was a staple for the Detroit Tigers, and I think he went to Baltimore too. But his gentle cadence and neighborly tone made him beloved. He would famously say, "Well, there's a foul ball from a guy from Grand Prairie or from uh, Ann Arbor, East Lansing." Yeah, he would call a lot of Michigan towns with his foul ball calls. And it was amazing. So anyway, he was a longtime voice of the Tigers. He had a gift for making listeners feel as if the game was called directly to them from a front porch on a summer evening. Ernie Harwell was basically the Detroit major voice from 1961, if I remember right, to 1992. He retired to become some kind of president of the Detroit Tigers network, or he took some job with the Tigers, but then he got dumped off or something. And then he came back for like 10 seasons. So that was actually pretty good that Harwell kind of came back. Yeah, I think the Tigers organization had him at a job, but then decided to get rid of him. So yeah, but Ernie Harwell was amazing all that. People forget that Ernie Harwell was actually the guy who called game for NBC in 1951. You know, the shot heard around the world. We all know about Ross Hodges and his famous call. The Giants win the pennant. The Giants win the pennant. And no, he did not make the top 10. But yeah, Ross Hodges was pretty good. But people forget that Ernie Harwell actually did the TV side. And yes, there was TV. In 1951, NBC broadcast that third and final game between the Giants and Dodgers. And that game actually was the first time that a baseball game was held coast to coast. So you could watch it if you could, in South Carolina, Florida, Texas, Arizona, California, and even Oregon, like all that. Just saying that it was coast to coast. It wasn't just regional restrictions applied. But yeah, Ernie Harwell was the guy, and his call for the home run, the Giant Bobby Thompson's home run, was lost through time. The only reason why Russ Hodges' call actually came through was because of that fan, Lawrence Goldberg, who was going to record Russ Hodges crying when the Giants lost to the Dodgers. However, Goldberg knew he had something and gave Russ the radio thing saying, "You got to have this," and then got some cigarettes in return. Such is life in the 1950s. Number 3 is another guy from the 50s. His name is Red Barber, a pioneer whose influence echoes through the booth. He had lots of sayings such as sitting in the catbird seat, and he would have clear, honest play-by-play. He defined the craft for radio era baseball. He was one of the first radio guys in 1939 when the Dodgers, Brooklyn Dodgers that was, decided to have their games over the radio and all that because people couldn't get into the ballpark. And he was an icon and all that. So Red Barber knew how to do everything. He would tell it like it is, as they say, before Howard Cosell kind of popularized the phrase. But anyway, Red Barber was a great guy. Like, you could hear his baseball cadence and all that. It was just cadence, and it was great. Red Barber allegedly was a Yankee broadcaster for many years, and then allegedly in 1966 he got booted because he had the gall in the radio people's mind. Well, he was doing the Yankees game on TV when there were 400 fans came out. Only like 400 fans. So he told the cameras to pan the stands and all that, despite the fact that it showed lots of empty seats. It was just basically honest play by play. And Barber got canned, but you know what? Fuck that. You lost him. Speaking of the Yankees, number 2 is the voice of the Yankees, Mel Allen, who brought warmth, authority, unmistakable enthusiasm to baseball in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. He had his famous "How about that?" becoming one of the sport's defining expressions. His national profile helped him make one of him become one of the most truly iconic baseball voices. You could hear him for almost every Yankees game. And yes, that was him when he called the bottom of the ninth in the Bill Mazeroski game in 1960. Even though he was the Yankees broadcaster, he called that one on NBC. Look out now. It's going on. Mazeroski 10-9. The only reason why that actually is on the, well, in the game has been preserved was because they found out in Bing Crosby, the crooners, private homes, some kinescopes because Bing Crosby liked to watch the Yankees and the Pirates. So because of that, the 1960 World Series Game 7 was preserved. It's one of the greatest games of all time. But yeah, Mel Allen was the guy who did that voice, did the Yankees era, and he did This Week in Baseball for 18 years and all that. So you knew you were going in for it. But of course, number 1, why would it not be number 1? It's Vin Scully. Vin Scully stands alone. He broadcast for one team and one team only, the Brooklyn/Los Angeles Dodgers. His warm voice, elegant phrasing, and perfect sense of silence made innings feel timeless. He would tell the Dodgers fans over the radio, "It is 9 o'clock in the city of angels," when he talked about Sandy Koufax's stuff. He narrated generations of baseball history with grace, precision, and everything else. Vin Scully was actually a never TV icon for NBC. Well, once he left CBS for NBC had the game of the week. Vin Scully became the play-by-play guy, the main guy, supplanting Bob Costas and Joe Garagiola. Vin Scully knew how to work. One of his early broadcasts, he called the legendary Grand Slam by Fred Lynn in the All-Star game. And that's the first time it's ever happened before. A Grand Slam. Vin Scully would call Jack Morris's no-hitter in 1984. Got him! Jack Morris has done it. A no-hitter. Vin Scully was basically the World Series voice for NBC for many years. He would call many plays. Roller up the first base line, and it gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it. And then after long silence, if one pitcher is worth 1,000 words, you are looking at 1,000 pitchers. But more importantly than that, the Mets have forced Game 7. And who can forget 1988 Kirk Gibson's home run? Remember, Vin Scully called the Dodger games, and he knew Kirk Gibson had troubles because of that NLCS flop, like that injury. And Kirk Gibson said, "Screw that, I'm going to hit." And so he was trying to prove the legendary Vin Scully wrong, and he did. He came up, "I drive into right field, she is gone," and then gave the baseball pause. "In a year that's been so improbable, the impossible has happened." That was Vin Scully in a nutshell. He was legendary. Once NBC lost baseball rights in 1989, he basically stopped doing baseball games nationally. He would do a lot of Dodger games, and he was there. But did you know that the guy did Dodger baseball for 67 years? 67. 6-7. He knew how to do that. The dude went 67 years. I'm 41. The dude did baseball for one team for 67 years. That is just freaking amazing. 67 years ago was 1959. And that was when the Dodgers won the World Series for the first time in Los Angeles instead of being in Brooklyn. That's how long it's been. That's it in a nutshell. Can you imagine going through 60 plus years with one team doing one sport? That's hard to do in the first place. Bob Cole never did that. The greats usually never lasted more than 50 years. And that's just amazing. It really, really is. So cheers to you, Vin Scully. I'm Jeff Diamond Adieu.